As we're starting, welcome to Mindful Live number 54. It is Thursday the 17th of March. Is today... What's that Irish festival again? I just said it. St. Patrick's Day, right? Is today that day? I'm actually not very sure. But good night nonetheless. Welcome to Mindful Live number 54. It's nice having you here. Nathan Springer here. If you are watching the live over on TikTok or over on Instagram, as per usual, if you missed any amount, actually you didn't miss any tonight, so you have nothing to worry about. We're starting late tonight. But if you usually missed something, or you want to find what the other 53 other Mindful Lives were about, well, you could go over to my YouTube channel, Nathan Springer on YouTube, where I am also streaming live right now, and you can catch all the rest there because they are saved there after they are recorded live also. Nice. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, we're starting talking about the issue where the Prime Minister made that little admission. That seemed to throw a lot of people into a tizzy. It was uniquely timed, and I've seen many people as talking about even the cabinet reshuffle, saying this is all a distraction from, in particular, the Paria incident. And I don't know. I'm not sure. Like, I wonder, is this really a distraction? Does this distract people? Honestly, does this distract people? Like, what more were people going to say about the Paria incident? The Paria incident. Listen, Unruly King. I do not take well to trolling inside of my live chat. The live chat is there for discussion and healthy discourse. Even if the words you are saying may sound grand, if you are trolling, you will be muted. So be wise about it. All right, yes. So I'm not sure if it's actually all. I'm not sure if it's actually a distraction all from the Paria incident, because I don't think it would be an effective distraction. I don't think much people would be like, oh my goodness, I have forgotten about that Paria incident. I don't think so. I think the people who are focused on the Paria incident aren't going to forget it for this. As someone asked here, was it a new admission? Well, it was a new admission. The level he admitted to now is a new admission. The part that he never actually admitted, he always spoke that I speak to the president regularly, and I think it's my duty to speak to the president, and I bring up information that I receive to the president. All that he said before, but he never said that he met with the chairman of the Police Service Commission. That's the new admission now, that he had a meeting with the chairman. Now, here's something very, very curious about that. Something very curious. I'm not sure if you were in the live, all who were in the live previously last night, but I mentioned some about this last night too. Some things that are very curious about this is the timing of it all. We know from the president's own admission that the merit list reached the president's house. So let's take a breakdown of this as it happened. Someone is asking about press conferences. That's misbehaving in public office. The Police Service Commission is not supposed to be influenced. Only in Trinidad this can happen. That entire office and process was compromised. You see, anytime people talk about only in Trinidad, I disagree with you there. As someone is talking about Jen Psaki, I think you spelled the name a little incorrect there, but Jen Psaki, the press secretary for the US president, this doesn't only happen in Trinidad. This happens all around. I don't understand how Paria incident is harmful politically to the PNM. Neither do I, really and truly. But everyone is attempting to make their political points from it. Anyway, what he did admit was he spoke to the president and all of that. But here's the curious timing in all of this. So the president admitted that the merit list reached her house. She said she never saw it, and that it was withdrawn before she could see it. So if we are thinking this through logically, then the timing for the Prime Minister's meeting with the Commission chairman would have had to occur at the President's house. And it would have had to have occurred at the president's house when the chairman was bringing the merit list. Now, I find that timing very, very curious, because the Prime Minister keeps saying that this was not interference, it wasn't meant to intervene or hamper the process. But if you meet the chairman of this commission at the president's house where she's carrying out her duty, and then you stop her from carrying out that duty, present her with some information that changes her mind and reverses her duty, how could you possibly say that's not intervention? That's what the president said. I don't know if you remember, the president had a whole press release where she iterated her part she played in this entire event. And she said that the chairman of the Police Service Commission brought the merit list to her house, to the president's house, but the president said she never saw the merit list, and the merit list was withdrawn before she could see it. So then, at that given time, in the president's house, I don't know this for sure, but based on the president's admission and based on the prime minister's admission, that one, the merit list reached her house and was withdrawn, and two, the prime minister's admission that he did present some information to the commission, and ultimately that seemed like what changed their mind. Now, if he presented the information before the commission chairman reached the president's house, then she would not have gone with the merit list. That makes sense, right? Because it seems like this information made her withdraw the merit list with the former top cop at the top of the merit list. So, from logical deduction, if the information was given before she reached the president's house, she would not have gone with the merit list. The information would have been given through deduction at the president's house. So you're trying to tell me the prime minister, the president, the chairman of the Police Service Commission meet at the president's house. And then both the prime minister and the president very uniquely keep one of the things they ensured they mentioned from the very beginning was that they never saw the merit list. And here's the thing, here's the reality. I believe them. I believe them. I don't think any one of them are lying about this. I think they may have treated that like it has the plague. They don't want to touch it. They don't want to see it. I believe that. But I also believe that when the Prime Minister made the statement that he knew what the merit list contained. And I saw a political commentator making this point yesterday, and I found it very interesting. The point that how would he know what was on the merit list? And for the Prime Minister in his statement said that, I can't remember the exact word he used, but he basically said it just so happened to have been that this all occurred at the point in time when the merit list was being considered. It just so happened to occur. Like, you're expecting me to believe it's pure coincidence that the Prime Minister met with the commission chairman on the day the merit list was delivered to the president's house. Like, how do you just happen to bounce up on the day of the delivery of the merit list and meet each other at the president's house? How does that happen? It's just beyond me. It's just beyond me. How exactly does that coincidence happen? That's the part to me that is off-putting. Like, I could understand the reasoning. As I said this last night, I think this isn't actually mysterious. I don't think it's mysterious. I think it's regular political movements. That the former top cop made some enemies in the political directorate, and politicians with power can do things to you. They have that ability. They have power. And that's basically what they did. That's the way I see it. But Then now, the part that makes it offensive nearly to me is that it seems nearly like you're trying now to couch this in that you are actually trying to stamp out corruption. That's not very honest of you, I think. I think my opinion. My opinion. Kervon says it would not be difficult for him to know the general content of the list. I mean, anyone could know the general content of the list, but it seems nearly like he would have known that it was specifically how long we start. We started now with the actual news about 11 minutes. But yes, yeah, I think you would have generally known, but there was specific action against the person at the top of the list. As a political commentator said yesterday, I am not saying this as my own words. A political commentator, Dr. Winford James, made this point yesterday, that the emergency, it seems, that this was dealt with. Gary is boasting, yes, Richard Glubman, Gary is boasting that he is at the head of the list, but he's boasting about that now. He wasn't boasting about that in November because he did not actually know that. The list was still in the process of going through the process. When this was happening, he was not making that boast. He didn't know that the Prime Minister was going to his clandestine meeting at the President's house. Double G didn't know that. He had no reason to necessarily think that his merit list was going to be usurped at that point in time. So he was not boasting at that point in time. You have to get the timeline correct there also. So there was no way to necessarily know that he was at the top of the list. And as someone pointed out in the comments when I made the note, when I made the contemplation about this, someone pointed out about where was his position in the last merit list and who chose them. And I think the Prime Minister pointed that out too. His position was fourth in the last merit list. And it was this current government that chose him even though he was fourth in the merit list. And in that tone, there's no reason to presume then that he would have been number one on the merit list. That's where does that presumption now come from? Seeing that the previous merit list he was fourth, it nearly seems, I'm using my words carefully, it nearly seems like the Prime Minister would have known this, like he would have known this, and then acted on this, and acted urgently on this to get it done before that list reached to the President. That's what it could seem like, because once the list reaches the President, then it has to go to the Parliament. So it nearly seems like he was waiting there to make sure he had cut it off there before it reaches the President. Listen, that's which one of those reasons, I forget which one of the reasons it is, where you use the most likely assumptions. That is actually the most likely assumption to me. When we look at all the facts of this issue, the most likely assumption is that he went there to cut off the list before it reached the point where the list would be in public, and then he would have to do what he has to do in public. That's what it seems like to me. He wanted to handle this at a level where he could handle it with just a few powerful individuals without getting the public knowledge involved. And unfortunately, as many things like that go, it backfired horribly on him. I honestly don't think that he intended for it to reach like this. He intended for all of this to happen very quietly. And in fact, that is what makes it a horrible thing. All right, the actual story on this, after speaking for quite some time, was that some people were calling for the DPP to take action on this. I believe Double G himself and one of the UNC senators wrote to the DPP seeking his involvement, that they want him to get in there and do something to change this. But an editorial out of the Newsday actually shares some clarity on the DPP's role in all of this. Leave DPP out of PSC mess. Amid all the exchanges over the circumstances that led to the collapse of the Police Service Commission, opposition senator and former commissioner have called on the DPP. We know that. While we agree it would be preferable for the full facts in the matters involving last year's collapse to come to light, it is pure folly to expect the office of the DPP can serve as the appropriate forum in which such facts are to be discovered. So the editorial here is saying that they agree there should be some kind of investigation into this matter. They are saying the DPP is the wrong person to do that investigation. Contrary to frequent assertions, the DPP has no investigatory powers. Under the Constitution, the post holder is responsible for the institution, continuation, or discontinuation of criminal proceedings. That has to do with the court system, the judicial system. While the DPP regularly liaises with the police before criminal charges are brought and may, in this capacity, provide direction to investigating officers, those activities are advisory. They relate to questions of law and evidence and whether the constituent elements of an offense may or may not have been satisfied to justify formal criminal proceedings. Okay, so all that legal jargon is to say that they aren't the law enforcers. The law enforcers sometimes consult them to make sure that the laws they are enforcing are actually laws and that when they bring up charges, that the charges would stick and would stand. So they consult the DPP on that matter. But it doesn't go vice versa necessarily. All right. These activities do not represent a relationship in which the DPP can commandeer officers and compel them to start an investigation, which is properly a matter for the police. Unless the police are carrying out a probe, the DPP has no role. So, at least from this statement here, someone in the chat is asking if the proceeding for this isn't judicial review. Maybe. But this person in the editorial here is mentioning that the DPP's role in this case would come into play if the police choose to launch an investigation. And can the police then choose to launch an investigation into this matter? The irony is that though there are calls for it to perform functions it does not have, the office of the DPP is struggling to fulfill the functions it clearly does have. And this was an article, I believe I read this article before, where they spoke about the severe understaffing inside of the DPP's office. If the office of the DPP is struggling to prosecute cases, can it be expected to go on a frolic of its own? One thing the office of the DPP and police do have in common is their vulnerability to getting caught in the crosshairs of politics. Ironically, the many questions that remain unanswered in relation to the PSC, President's House, and the Office of the Prime Minister revolve around the appropriate bounds of executive action as it relates to our independent organizations, including the Office of the DPP, which should not be dragged into this bacchanal. So, they are saying that the whole bacchanal that is currently going on anyway is a bacchanal because of the inappropriate, well, possibly, seemingly inappropriate bounds of these offices. And the editorial is saying here, do not bring the DPP now into this matter further. So this begs the question. The editorial didn't say that this matter should not be investigated. In fact, they said contrary. They said the matter should be investigated. They said the DPP is the wrong person to do it. So then, is the police the right person to do it? And the former top cop keeps mentioning over and over that he has written to the police commissioner. He's asking the acting police commissioner to launch an investigation, and the police commissioner is not. So if the police commissioner refuses to launch an investigation, the DPP says this is outside of our bounds, then who has the authority? Yes, Dark Knight. Yes, Dark Knight, I did. And for this reason, one attorney sees misbehavior in office, but also sees constitutional crisis as he looks at this. There is a constitutional crisis in Trinidad and Tobago. This is the opinion of attorney Emery Crown following what he called Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley's startling and curiously timed revelation. Crown told the Express before that there are now issues with respect to misbehavior by officials, including President Paula May Weeks. He said the Constitution provides for the separation of powers and they operate in theory independent of each other. Crown said Rowley's disclosure reveals there was in fact a significant constitutional breach. He said Rowley inserted himself into what should be an independent process by an independent commission, and this contravenes the fundamental principle of the separation of powers. I actually kind of agree with that. I think that's the correct way to put that. That he inserted himself into there. What was he doing at the president's house then? Really, the information. Remember, for those of you who are Mindful Life faithfuls, you would have sat there while we went through the investigation into the firearms license, whole bacchanal and drama. We know what it said. Anything from that investigation pointed so scarily at the former top cop that you had to take the time out of your obviously busy day. You have the Prime Minister to go down to the President's house to intercept an independent commission doing their job. Was that information from that investigation really so urgent? I think that's a hard one to try and convince someone. I'm all for conversation. If any one of you are high up there in Balize House, tell Dr. Rowley, I am a polite person. I am respectful. My parents did a good job. I would like to have a conversation with him. He could come here and explain this. I think I'm a reasonable person. I'd really like to see this explained. How is it independent? Is it has to come to the president and then the parliament? If it has, okay. The commission is supposed to be independent. The hiring of the person, the commissioner, is not independent. The idea, understand this, the framers of the Constitution, the framers of the Constitution, you do not want that this unelected, bear in mind the commission is unelected. You don't want in your country that unelected individuals are the ones who choose the main things. So what you have here, you're aiming to have so much buffers in it that it makes it more difficult for a corrupt person to get through. You want an independent commission to come up with a list of names, and then that independent commission hands the list of names to an independent president, who then acts as it were the buffer between the independent commission and the politicians, and you take this list and now carry this to the politicians, where these parties and politicians, but they are the elected individuals. You must understand what a politician is supposed to represent. When something goes to the House of Representatives, what that's supposed to represent is that I live in one of the Couva constituencies, that my representative is supposed to speak on my behalf and, as it will, choose a commissioner out of the independently chosen names to be the commissioner of the country. The fact that a commissioner is chosen politically is madness. I don't know, Richard. I don't know, because I don't know if I would want a totally independent commission, unelected, choosing my commissioner, because here's what is going to happen. We already see that this independent commission listened to the Prime Minister behind closed doors. So you would have a case where unelected people appointed to a position are choosing the law enforcement for the country. That's actually kind of scary. Here's the thing, and this might be controversial because you may end up with a politician in the role, but I don't mind the idea of an elected commissioner. I disagree, Richard Glubman. I think the police commissioner should be outside of the police service. And this gets me heated. I did a few heated monologues on this. Now, I understand the experience inside of the police service and all of that. But I'm talking about the TTPS, Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. I think there is a lot of malaise inside of the TTPS and a lot of lethargy. And it has this biding your time and playing your role, and if you spend enough time here, it's my turn to get this done. And I think if you allow that to go straight up to the level of commissioner, we're going to get that same malaise, regular old and brown down in corruption, literally that blue gang that no one can penetrate, the impenetrable blue gang we're going to end up with. I would like a commissioner at the top of the police service who is outside of the blue gang and does not subscribe to the loyalty of the blue gang. He will throw the blue gang under the bus if needs be. I would like that to be the commissioner, not someone who spent 50 years inside of the blue gang, has 50 million, well, not 50 million, has 5,000 favors to pay back for. They're close friends with all the other crooks inside of the blue gang. Because listen, I am sure by the time you are at the level where you could be you could qualify to be the commissioner of police inside of the police service, you would know personally all of the high level corrupt individuals inside of the police service. You would know them. And if I am to put you, knowing all those people, as the commissioner of police, I am supposed to expect you on the second day that you're appointed to go in there and clean up the police service because you know it from the inside out. But that never actually happens. So the fact that that never actually happens tells me that they're okay with it continuing like that. I would prefer someone from the outside. I'm not saying someone from the outside that doesn't understand national security, obviously a security expert, but someone who is not part of that blue gang. That's my view. Because I don't want a gang running my law enforcement. I want a service. I want a company. I want a CEO, as it were, as the commissioner, who would fire people. You're fired. You're fired. You're doing a horrible job. You're fired. Get out. Not who's part of the gang and paliwalis with all of them. And it can't be cleaned up from someone from the outside. What? You expect the TTPS to be cleaned up from someone from the inside? Tell me this, Richard Glubman. See, how do you expect someone who spent 30 years inside of the TTPS, living along with all the corrupt practices inside of the TTPS, probably governing over their fair share? They are friends or at least compatriots with the other ASPs. I am assured some of them are corrupt. I am not saying the whole service corrupt. How am I saying that? I never said that. I am saying that there are corrupt elements inside of the service and members inside of the service turn a blind eye to it. That is a fact. Every police officer that I know and I speak to is familiar firsthand with corruption inside of the police service. I am sure you too, Richard Glubman, could admit to some corruption inside of the police service. Has any police officer in our TTPS ever stood up and done anything significantly to reduce the corruption inside of the TTPS? The only person who seemed to want to do something seemingly was the former top cop. And constitutional reform may be needed for that. Indeed, Curvon. Indeed. So, yeah, I don't think that comes from inside the TTPS. I do not think so, actually. And I think that this may indeed be a bit of constitutional crisis, as we don't know who is really supposed to investigate this matter. Who does this fall to? Who does the responsibility for investigating this matter actually fall to? And who is going to take up that responsibility? Here's the thing. This person is in the acting commissioner of police position. He isn't going to take up that responsibility. I highly doubt it. That's like being a bit pregnant. It is a constitutional crisis. Okay. Fair enough, Blue Zabuka. Fair enough. Fair enough. I believe the best approach is from the inside. They already know what's up. The rest just feed off the crumbs, fearing for the bigger fishes. 21 Gun Salute says, I'm a police officer. It's a game of hide and seek with certain. I know. Listen, I do know many police. Although I criticize, you mightn't believe it with the amount of criticism I have for the police, but I know many. I have some family with police. I know police personally, very personally. So I am aware. And I will never say that every member in the TTPS is a corrupt person or an evil person. I am just saying the reality of what it is to live inside of this gang, basically. If you are inside of the TTPS, I am not saying that I am expecting any police officer to jump out and risk their lives to go out there and say something. I understand it's risking your lives. I understand. It's if you jump out there and just say something, you may literally be risking your life. Understood. But because of that, I don't want to take someone who lived through that fear of not going to risk their lives, not risking their position. And listen, if you climb the ladder inside of the TTPS, very likely you would have had to, not mash a few toes. You know that superior is doing some extra duty nonsense, but you don't want to aggravate him. Otherwise, that promotion will never come. He's going to send you out to some remote location. So you're not mashing toes. Very likely the highest members inside of the police service may have seen the most. I had to pause myself before I went out of control there. Very likely a lot of the highest members in the TTPS would have seen the most. The gang statements sound like the deceased imam. Maybe, but he is not the only person that refers to police as a gang. And by general definitions of a gang, it fits. It does fit. It forces a kind of loyalty. The police service doesn't function like a service. It doesn't function like a company, like a company with rules and a system and consequences. It doesn't function like that. It functions in essence like a gang, where there's that loyalty and you don't go against the gang, and it has a strong gang lean. And here's the thing, I understand also why it ended up like that. You are in a dangerous job. I do not say that the police are not facing a dangerous job. It's a very difficult job that they have. Well, very dangerous job that they have. And the dangers are real. So in that danger, you want to have that camaraderie with your fellow police officers. So it encourages that kind of unbending trust. When you're literally putting your life in the hands of your fellow police officers, etc. I understand it helps to fuel that gang kind of thing. But then, because of that, then maybe you want someone at the head outside of the gang. That's just my reasoning. That's my reasoning. Obviously, my reasoning doesn't stand up with everyone else's, but that's fine. I'm sorry, but the TOPS acted with respect to the public health ordinance was poor. But how the TTPS acted with respect to the public health ordinance was poor. Obviously, it was horrible. Good evening, Scafty. Good evening, good evening, good evening. All right, all right. Yeah, we started late already, so I think this will be all for now for the YouTube and Instagram. It was nice having you all here. It was good to be here even though we started late. I'll be over on TikTok for a little while longer. If you'd like to come over there and chat a little bit, I will be there. If not, I will see you tomorrow for the next Mindful Live. Peace.